Hello and welcome to BlueTube, where we talk all things blue. And this is another transfer talk video, and I haven't made one in a while, so there is a lot to get through. And let's start off with the most exciting player, and the most, exciting player that we're going after, and that is Paul Pogba. And there haven't been a lot of negotiations, as to say. There hasn't been a bid that's been made for him ever since Saturday when we put in that £57 million bid, I think. Last Saturday, so a week ago. But there really haven't been any bids or any, negotiations really, that's been made public. But what's been revealed just yesterday is Paul Pogba's wage demands. And get ready to have your mind blown away, because it is a staggering, it doesn't say, it's £318,000 per week. Yep, just take it in. £318,000. That is absolutely crazy, and I actually don't know how much Messi or Ronaldo makes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's near that mark. In fact, I think Ronaldo or Messi, one of them makes £350,000. I think that's their wage for one of them. So just to put that into perspective, Pogba, 22-year-old midfielder, just earning almost as much as a Ballon d'Or winner. That's kind of crazy. And if you really think about it, the one thing that I've liked about Chelsea is that we're really good at negotiating wages with players. We don't offer players crazy high wages and get them, to be, feeling overconfident or anything. Like, there's so many other clubs that, in fact, like Luke Shaw, I think he's getting like 130k a week at Manchester United, something crazy like that. But what Chelsea does well is, let me just give an example. Like Eden Hazard, best player of the Premier League last season. He earns just under 200k a week, I think, or maybe exactly 200k a week. And he's the best player in the Premier League. Meanwhile, there's Wayne Rooney, who's earning 300,000k a week. And it's just crazy. Even Falcao, who earned over 300k a week at Man U last season, I think. At Chelsea, to come here, there's just something that Mourinho does. There's something about the Chelsea board. I think, because players, they don't play for the money, and that's something that I really like about Chelsea, that I've really respected about our club for the last years. And even Falcao, just to play for our team, to play under Mourinho, to play as a part of Chelsea, he took like an over 50% cut. So I'm pretty sure he gets around 150k compared to last season, where he earned over 300k at Manchester United per week. And John Terry, who's our captain, I'm sure I think he earns about 170k a week. Diego Costa, he earns about 200k a week as well. Matic, players who arguably, the best holding midfielder in the Premier League last season. Matic, I think he earns around 120k a week actually. So for Pogba to come in and to just earn £318,000 a week, I don't know how I feel about that. Of course, I'd love him to come, If that's what it takes, I'd say do it, because he's a quality player, one of the best in the world, potentially a future Ballon d'Or winner. And can you imagine a side with Hazard and Pogba and Pedro? That is scary. That is scary. So, I would say yes, do it. But I really do hope, Chelsea can do some negotiations. And the reason that he's, expecting so much is because of Barcelona. And if you guys don't know, Barcelona, they actually have a transfer ban currently, and this is the last transfer window where they're banned. So in January they can start buying players again. And this all goes back to a year ago, I think, or 2 years ago, because of the whole like international. It's something with the youngsters in their youth academy. They did something illegal or something. You can look into it. I don't know the exact details, so I'm probably not the best person to tell you. But they did receive a ban. And if it wasn't for that ban, Pogba would be going to Barcelona. No questions asked. He'd definitely be going there. But because of that ban, what they have is an agreement, the Barcelona and Juventus. And in that agreement, Paul Pogba basically around 318k a week after taxes or something like that. And basically, in order for Chelsea to match the wage that Barcelona is offering Pogba to come next year, we have to pay £318,000. And that's where I think that Chelsea aren't going to be able to negotiate with him. We're not going to be able to get a better price, because Barcelona already have that guarantee to pay him that much. So, from Paul Pogba's perspective, he'd rather go to Barcelona if Chelsea are unwilling to meet that wage demand. So I'm sure we will, but I still don't know how I feel about it. And by the way, that's just the wages, and the bid, the number that's being thrown around is 72 million pounds, and there is a general consensus that will be enough for Juventus to let go of Pogba. There's a general consensus in the media, and apparently it's just a matter of personal wages. And between the clubs, they both have an idea that, as I said, 72 million will be enough for them to accept it, and it's just all up to the personal wages and the personal demands. So we'll see how the situation develops. There's only 3 days left in the transfer window, so it's gonna be crazy in terms of Pogba. In fact, it's gonna be just crazy, because as I'm going to show you, there are so many stories today, and there are so many different players that we're looking at. But now, let's move on to Charlie Austin, and this is an unexpected one. By the way, the reason I crouched down is because my laptop is down there. This is an external monitor that's hooked up, so to change the tabs, I have to go on the computer. But anyway, Charlie Austin. This was completely out of the blue. We haven't been linked with a striker ever since Lacazette about 2 weeks ago. And, if you guys remember me, after our entire preseason, after the Swansea game, I repeatedly said, we need a striker. Because Costa just isn't performing, but also he's very injury prone. Loic Remy cannot start a game. He can't lead a starting 11. He's a great sub, but he can't start. And Falcao, I'm sure he's going to get better. And in fact, I'd say he's better than Loic Remy at the moment, as it is. But he's not that world-class striker that we need if we want to be competing in the Champions League against the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, you name it. And we just don't have that extra backup. And I'm not saying Charlie Austin is a world-class striker. I'm not saying that at all. But what I can say is he was one of the best strikers in the Premier League last season. And apparently he's worth around 15 million pounds. And if you ask me, that is an absolute bargain. 15 million pounds for an English striker who scored, I think, 21 goals last season in the Premier League. That's an insane price, 15 million. I think that's a bargain. And he's obviously not the world-class striker, the Lacazette or the Benzema that I wanted. But I do think getting him would be a brilliant reinforcement for our squad. For the times that Costa is injured or he's not performing as he is, as right now, as he's not performing right now, then Charlie Austin can step in and do a job, because he's proven in the Premier League. He's played for a QPR side, which, let's be honest, they're not that great. But from that side, he scored 21 goals. In fact, he scored more than Diego Costa in the Premier League last season, if I'm correct. So that's crazy, and I'm very, very happy that we're being linked to them. And by the way, it is the Telegraph that are reporting this, and they're a very, very reliable source. And really, there's 3 days left of the transfer market. Anything can happen. And Mourinho, if you're watching this, buy this guy. Just please buy this guy, because I think right now I'm having some doubts about our striker. And it's not just a recent thing that I'm saying. I've said this for over a month now. Ever since preseason, I've been saying this over and over again. We need a midfielder. We need a striker. Midfielder, Paul Pogba. He's a decent player. And striker, we haven't really been linked with anyone. But 3 days left, Charlie Austin. If we snap him up for 15 million pounds, I would be absolutely over the moon. So Abramovich, Granovskaya, Mourinho, Emanello, whoever in the Chelsea board is watching this, buy this guy, please. I beg of you. Now let's get to some more familiar names, and that is John Stones. And I kind of said this very, very shortly in yesterday's Champions League draw video. But John Stones has handed in a transfer request, and it's been rejected by Everton. And it is absolutely crazy. I honestly don't understand Everton. I've said this before. Screw John Stones. We don't need this guy. Forget about him. Just the last 3 days, let's focus on someone else now. And really, Roberto Martinez has come out and said, we have great plans for John Stones. He's a part of our future. Sometimes in life, money can't buy everything. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, and apparently Chelsea have even put in a 38 million pound bid, and it's got rejected. I can't even speak. If you ask me, that is absolutely ridiculous that Everton would even consider rejecting that. £38 million can buy, some of the best center backs in the world right now. If you have £30 million, you can probably buy the likes of Boateng, Sergio Ramos, Chiellini, the best center backs in the world. Maybe a bit more, maybe more like 45 or 50, but that's still very, very similar. And John Stones, a player who's had one good season. Don't forget that he's had one good season. For Everton, who hasn't been tested in the Champions League, who hasn't been tested at the highest level, who hasn't been tested against the best players in the world, and to even consider rejecting a £38 million bid is ridiculous in my opinion. But I'm happy that they've rejected it. I'm very happy because I've always had doubts about him right from the beginning. And I just want Chelsea to forget about it. And really, the next stories that I'm going to tell you proves that Chelsea have a plan B, and I think it proves that we're going to stop pursuing him finally. And just really, I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. But I just hope that there is enough time for us to buy a good replacement for a good price. Because, players can be overpriced in the last few days of the market because clubs know that they can squeeze out that extra cash. But by the way, for John Stones, I do have a theory on this, and this isn't one of my crazy conspiracy theories. I actually read this on an article a few days ago. And what Everton are actually doing is this. They know that in the current market, John Stones, £38 million is a great price for him. But next season, the market's going to go crazy, and let me tell you why. If you guys don't know, the Premier League has had a new TV licensing agreement or whatever. That's going to earn them £5.4 billion next season, from next season onwards. And that's going to be evenly distributed between the 20 clubs. So something crazy like that. It's probably not that, but it's basically Chelsea, all the clubs in the Premier League are going to get a lot more money from next season onwards. And a lot of people are saying that's going to make it a bit more even playing field for players at the bottom of the league and teams at the top of the league. And it's also going to, transcend the Premier League and really reinforce it as the best league in the world. But what that means is there's going to be a lot more money in the market, a lot more money to be spent, which means that Everton think that they can squeeze more money out of John Stones next season. And that's apparently what they're going for. That's apparently, in fact, credit to them. That's good business in my opinion, to see the future, think about, the different outcomes, and to go for the one that gets you the most money, and in the process, get another season out of John Stones, who is a great center back. So, credit to them. But as a Chelsea fan, I'm happy that we're not gonna spend £38 million on John Stones. I'm just happy. So, who are the replacements? Let me tell you guys. And the first player that we're looking for is a complete surprise that nobody expected. And it seems like a very, very likely deal, which is very strange. And it is Zhang Linpeng from the Chinese league. And apparently he's known as the Chinese Sergio Ramos. And he's been hailed many times as the best player in the Chinese league. And his main position is actually a right back. So he's not really the center back replacement that we're looking for. And he is 26 years old. Let me just check. Yeah, he's 26 years old. So he's not really, the guy who's gonna link up with Kurt Zouma for the next 10 years, which is what John Stones or Rafael Varane could have been. But this is strange. I don't know. I think this is more of a marketing thing, to be honest. This is one of my crazy conspiracy theories. I think this is more of a marketing thing because the Chinese economy as a whole is growing. The Chinese market is having more and more potential every single year. A lot more money is being made out of that Chinese population. So if you look at not just football, but just throughout world business, like Apple is really focusing on growing the Chinese market, and so many big firms around the world are focusing on the Chinese market because there's huge potential there. And I think this is Chelsea just trying to get their brand more out there in the Chinese team. And in fact, teams like Real Madrid and another team had their preseason in China this season just to grow that Chinese audience. Because more people watching, more money, more merchandise sold, more money, better club. I don't know, something like that. So I think that's more of that. But if according to the reports, this deal is very, very likely. But in my opinion, this isn't going to be a replacement for John Stones. I think if we do buy him, we're also going to buy a center back alongside him. And by the way, there isn't really a price being thrown around for him, but I'd assume that at the maximum around £5 million, but more realistically 3 million, 4 million, the way I see it. But there isn't an official price being thrown around. And another issue is a work permit. Because he's a Chinese player playing the Chinese league, and China isn't in the top 70 in the FIFA rankings or something like that. It's a similar problem that happened with Kennedy, but Kennedy, because of his transfer price and his wages that he's getting, he actually got a work permit. So it could be similar to that. If Chelsea offer enough money to him, then he could qualify for a work permit. But the general consensus is he's going to be going out on loan for a season, at least. So the way I see it is we're going to sign him probably, but another center back alongside him. So which center back are we going to get? Just a sec, guys. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And by the way, before I talk about Garay and Abdennour, who are the two center backs that we've been really linked with, I'm going to talk about Raphael Varane for a bit. I've been looking for articles about Varane and rumors linking us with him for the last 20 minutes or so, and I've had no success. It seems like Chelsea have kind of accepted the fact that, firstly, Raphael Varane's going to cost over £40 million because he's a Real Madrid player, because he is a quality player, and also there's only 3 days left of the market, and also because Real Madrid probably aren't really willing to do business with us, and it's not really worth risking the 3 days that we have left into pursuing Varane. And the more likely, the more realistic, the more practical targets are Garay and Abdennour, who I think Chelsea are really going to pursue for the next 3 days. And let me talk about it individually. And Garay is a player we've been linked with before. About 4 days ago, I think, we've been linked with him. And we're being linked with him again. And he's an Argentinian center back playing at Zenit Petersburg. Before that, he played for Benfica, and he was a great center back. He still is a great center back. He's more of like a John Terry kind of center back. He's not really a pacey guy who's gonna bump up and down. He's not really like a Kurt Zouma guy. Doesn't have the pace, but he uses his strength and his tactical awareness of the game to kind of make up for it. But John Terry is a similar player, and he's been one of the best center backs in the game for the last decade or so. But the way the game is moving in the future, I feel like pace is becoming more and more of an important trait in center backs, especially with strikers being so fast these days. So I think players like Stones and Varane would have been perfect, and Garay maybe not so much, but he is a fantastic center back. And really, the thing is, John Terry, he's a phenomenal center back as well. And as I said, he's a similar player, but his lack of pace is being exploited, especially this season. And who knows, that could change. But I really don't think, I'm not feeling Garay, I'm not feeling him. Just a second, I need to charge my computer or it's gonna run out of battery. But I'm not really feeling Garay, But we are being linked with him. There isn't an official price being thrown around, but I'd assume maximum £20 million. So a lot better price than John Stones. But he is older, he's 28 years old. So he's not really a long-term replacement. I said this before as well. We're looking for a center back that's gonna keep us going for the next decade. A partner to go with Kurt Zouma. We already have Gary Cahill, who's like 28 or 29, I think, that can kind of keep us going for the next 3 or 4 seasons. But we're looking for a center back like John Stones or Varane, who's gonna partner up with Kurt Zouma and go for the next decade. So I don't think Garay is the right player for us. But he is a great player, and really, I wouldn't be upset to see him come, especially for £20 million compared to John Stones, which is just an astronomical fee. So there's Garay, and the second player we've been linked for. Just like guys, let me just Abdennour, and if you guys don't know, he is actually I don't know where he's from. Just means Tunisian center back. I have my computer down there. He's a Tunisian center back who's 26 years old, so a bit younger than Garay, and he plays for AS Monaco. And he is, I think, who I would want us to go for more. And even though Garay has got extra tactical awareness, more of that, John Terry kind of strong, physical player, Abdennour he's got more pace, and that's really what I think is important what am I saying? In the modern game, to have that pace. And that's why players like Gary Cahill and Kurt Zouma are so successful. One of the reasons, because they've got that pace. Coupled with the strength, coupled with the aerial ability. But pace does play a role. Pace does play a role. And Abdennour, and also what makes me lean towards Abdennour more than Garay is because he's 26 years old. He's 2 years younger than him. He's going to keep us going for a longer time purely. And also he's been linked with us for £15 million, which I think is a very, very reasonable price for him. For a centre-back that's played in AS Monaco, that's played in the Champions League, he's tested against the best players in the world. So I think he would be a better buy than Garay, who's played at Zenit St. Petersburg. Even though they do play Champions League, they're not really at the same level as Monaco, in my opinion. So Abdennour is the guy that I would prefer to go for. But what about you? Let me ask you, would you go for Abdennour, or would you go for Garay, or would you continue to pursue John Stones and offer a bid over £40 million, which I just don't think is going to happen, and I think it's ridiculous. So you know what, just get back to the two options, Garay or Abdennour. Tell me in the comment section down below. I think Abdennour would be the better buy, but what do I know? I'm just a random guy. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I think that is all of our stories for today. I think this has been quite a long video. I actually don't know exactly how long, but hopefully you've stayed here until the very end. If you have, congratulations. If you haven't, then go kill yourself. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back with a match review tomorrow of the Chelsea Crystal Palace game, which is at 3 p.m. UK time today, so be sure to catch that. I'll be reviewing that tomorrow, as I said, and until then, stay blue.